Hey guys, Reuben Williams here, founder of SportsGrad. Back in the day, I landed a job at Cricket Australia on the Monday after my final university exam. And then 3 years later, when COVID hit and my job was made redundant, rather than looking for work for months on end, I was headhunted into a role that doubled my salary. I'm not telling you this to brag, I'm telling you because there is a method to it. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. For example, Lucas Viana, one of our members, called the SportsGrad method a cheat code, and another member, Sasha Brahim, she called it magic. And honestly, I'll take that. Now, most people spend years trying to break into sport and never figure out why it is not working. And so the reason that this podcast exists is to change that. Every week, I'm going to share some real moments from real coaching calls that are unfiltered, unscripted, so you get a taste for the kind of work that has helped people land over 800 roles in sport and counting. If you're ready to stop guessing and start moving in the right direction and go after the career that you've always wanted, apply for the SportsGrad Method program at sportsgrad.com.au. Now, let's get into it. What I'm going to introduce you to today is part of one of the many things we do inside the SportsGrad Method program to help people get results, and that is the headhunted system. And that is to help take you guys from a place where you guys might be invisible to with no authority, to a place where you're highly sought after and credible. And you can do this no matter if you are, just graduating or if you are, have been working in a full-time job for, 10, 15, 20 years as well. This works no matter where you're at in your career. We've been able to help people at all those different stages too. And it's been so effective that it led Andrew Hawkins, who's in his mid-30s. He used this process to put out one highly effective post, which led to him connecting with Channel 7's head of the Commonwealth Games and who's also the executive producer of their cricket coverage, which led to Andrew Hawkins getting hired as a senior researcher for the Commonwealth Games by the Seven Network. That was just with one post using the system. Robert Adams, he is over in Manchester. He used this system, put out two posts, and in the process gained 215 new connections, one of which was the manager of the Northern Ireland football team. So, the Northern Ireland Ange Postecoglou, if you will. And then Sasha Brahim here proved that you're only ever 5 posts away from landing a role through the hidden job market by using this system too. And she said, Reuben, thanks for sharing the headhunted system. It definitely worked for me, and I'd only done about 5 posts. The role also hadn't been created yet and therefore not offered through any channels. So this definitely reaffirms Reuben's piece on the hidden job market in sport. So, and then one of the other, we also kind of helped this guy called Tom Blazek go from a place where he was working as a substitute teacher with zero networking sport to then getting hired into one of the most niche parts of the sports industry, athlete well-being, within a matter of months by putting this to work as well, which grew his network by over 250%. It's now gone a lot more than that, but coming from a substitute teacher with no authority, he was able to break into the athlete well-being world, and said that by using this, it was a turning point in his career. So the key fundamental principle with this is that, if you want to get headhunted and safeguard your future earning in the industry, you need to make sure that you are top of mind with people in sports, so that when somebody thinks of you, when somebody thinks of an opportunity, you are the first person that comes to mind. And you can do that in 3 ways. You can either do that on paper, in person, or online. So let's say you've only got 2 hours in your week to allocate to job hunting. Here are a couple of ways that you could use it. First way you could use it is by using those 2 hours to hopefully influence one person. For example, it might take you 2 hours to put together an application. You send it off. You're now in a pile with potentially up to 500 people to influence the one hiring manager who's going to read it. And Dan Simons is the director of people and culture at the Victorian Institute of Sport. When I asked him what he looks for in candidates and about the hiring process at the time he was at Golf Australia, he said, given the number of people that we have to sort through, you've got about 5 to 10 seconds to catch my attention before I dismiss you. Okay? It's not very fair, is it? You've just put in 2 hours of work and then they dismiss you within 5 to 10 seconds. But that is the reality of the sports industry. The next way you could become top of mind with people is by going to an event. So let's say you go to a networking event, you spend 2 hours there, you meet 10 people. That's probably a better use of your job hunting time. Or granted, they're not always happening every second of every day. You do have to wait for them to pop up. But that is why getting out in person and getting to networking events is a better use of 2 hours, because you can expand the reach of you and your personal brand. But then there's another way to use 2 hours effectively that allows you to influence, 10,000 and above people, even more than that. I had a post last week that reached 100,000 people. And so what this allows you to do is start to reach people at scale. It helps you start conversations that may never have come to you anyway. And it helps you follow up with people at scale as well. Because if you're out there networking too, like you want to make sure that people don't forget about you. And that's what LinkedIn does. So Tom Blazik here, he was the substitute teacher. We helped him kind of craft a LinkedIn strategy and build a LinkedIn presence that meant that this guy over here, Mark Worthington, who's the head of player development and wellbeing at the Geelong Cats, was reaching out to Tom. Previously, before Tom did any of this, he'd spent like the whole year trying to get in touch with Mark, couldn't get in touch with him because, Tom was nobody to Mark. Now through doing this, Mark is reaching out to him. Okay. So you can completely flip the script and completely, you can exponentially grow your influence by building a presence online. And so what that means is that, and for people who do this, the timeline gets flipped, rather than it kind of leading to this anxiety-inducing endpoint. What it means is, like, for the people who do this well is they start by introducing themselves and their content. They then start to introduce, why they do what they do. They then start to integrate a bit about who they are so people see them as a person, not a robot, based on the content they're creating that allows them to reach out to people who engage. And they become top of mind with, 20 plus people very, very quickly, okay? So really you just want to kind of flip the order of what you guys are potentially doing at the moment. Rather than apply, network, post, you want to post, network, and then apply. Everything becomes much, much smoother that way. Sounds simple, very difficult to execute effectively. Because when you do this well, you will start to feel the difference, because it becomes more effective to meet people, it becomes much easier to be remembered, and it becomes much faster to get shortlisted for jobs. And I'm going to show you a bit how. So the first way that this helps you is making it more effective to meet people. So for those of you who've only got, one or two people in your network at the moment, and you're struggling to reach out to people and wondering how do you do it, this is what you need to understand. One of the first things to understand if you're trying to grow your network is why do professionals want to connect with you? There's one of 5 ways. Number 1 is to do business. Number 2 is to make a hire. Number 3, to learn from others. Number 4, to pay it forward, which you may get lucky with some people on. And number 5, to elevate their work. And if you can reach out to people that in a way that hits one of those 5 reasons, then you will create a connection with somebody. Who recognizes this photo? Quick show of hands. Couple people? Cool. So at the front here is the chairman of Football Australia, Chris Niku, or he was the chairman at the time. And this photo here was when Australia got awarded the host country of the FIFA Women's World Cup. So how do you think you get in touch with this guy here? Chairman of the country who's just been awarded the World Cup. Post on LinkedIn. Reach out to him on LinkedIn. So Chris was one of the very first people that I interviewed for SportsGrad on the YouTube channel back in 2018. And the reason he was willing to give me his time is because I created what I call a connection vehicle, something that gave me an excuse to chat with Chris. Because if I reach out to Chris and say, hey, I'd love to pick your brain, it's a very easy thing for Chris to be like, I don't have time for this, or what am I getting out of it? But instead, if I reach out to Chris with something like this, and this is back in 2018, I sent this message saying, hey, Chris, I was wondering about your involvement as a director for Football Australia. I currently run a platform for students, or brackets, anyone, pursuing careers in sport. Here I interview industry professionals to uncover the insights and make them accessible so people can learn from their experience to forge their own career. If you're available in Melbourne next week, would love to film a short interview. If you can create a connection vehicle for yourself, you can exponentially grow your network. And when I mentioned those numbers before around, the events and the number of podcast guests and, the following that I've grown now, it's by having a connection vehicle. But it started out with literally 30 subscribers. So anyone can do this. And you only need 30 subscribers to connect with, the chairman of Football Australia. So anyone can get started. And you can do this in a number of different ways. So, for example, you can start a podcast like I did, or the Sports Bubble became a podcast that, for those who listen to the podcast now and see Nathan Peroni hosting the show, he got himself a job at Western United by interviewing his boss. Ankit Sobti over here created a LinkedIn series where he would go and just have lunch with people and, and then talk about who he was meeting. And Tom Blazik here, what he did was he would go and read journal articles about athlete well-being, and they're like 20 pages long. He would digest them and then summarize them so that you can get 20 pages worth of value in like a 5-minute read. What that did for him was allow him to connect with a lot of other people in that space because he's offering value. And on top of that, allowed him to connect with a lot of the researchers that he was posting about as well. So he was elevating their work. Now, for some of you, you might work in a full-time job and they might not like the idea of you posting on LinkedIn because it's going to scream like, hey, I'm job hunting. And I get it. One way around that is by creating something like Notice. And again, like it doesn't need to be, at the moment, Notice has got 9,000 followers here. I'm sure it's bigger than that now. But you don't have to have like a fully fledged professional publication to get what you want. Remember, like LinkedIn here is like a means to an end. And so what you can do is create a publication on the thing that you are interested in that allows you to talk to the people that you want to talk to. So for example, Notice is all about the Australian sports business, and they connect with people in that space to kind of share insights on what's going on there. The guy who runs it, Matthew Hughes, works in the marketing department for Medibank. Okay, so he's like in healthcare and insurance, like not in the sports industry. So this is like a hobby for him on the side. And if you're working in another job and someone questions you like, hey, why are you running that publication? Just tell them like, heaven forbid I have an interest in sport. Okay, so these are some ways that you can kind of create a connection vehicle that get you to your goal of like, how do I meet people that allows me to become top of mind. Having a connection vehicle is the best way to do it. So what this also does is create a way for you to be remembered. So at the moment, like this is how the awareness of people who are in the industry ready bucket work at the moment. So if you imagine like your awareness as a balloon, and if you've never posted before, then your awareness is like probably on the ground. What you need to do is get your balloon high up in the air so people can see it. So when they're walking around during the day and they're thinking, oh, I could really use a commercial partnerships manager right now, they look up into the sky and they see your balloon. They go, oh, that's it. I've got to get Henry in for this. Okay. So you want to make sure your balloon is up nice and high. And the way to get your balloon up is actually kind of build a bit of a presence for you. But for most people in the industry ready camp, what they do is they put out one hashtag open to work post and their visibility spikes for a bit, and then it comes back down. And then about 2 or 3 months later, when they're like, why the hell did my one hashtag open to work post not work? They do it again. And then a few months go by and they do it again. Okay. What you want to do is make sure that you are doing the reverse of that. So this here is Michael Long. Michael Long has been around SportsGrad since 2021, and in that time has got a job at the Sydney Swans, the Sydney Sixers, and now the FA over in London. Like, he travels into Wembley Stadium to go to work every day. So he's got a job, but what he's doing at the moment is he's future-proofing his career by continuing to build an online presence. And you don't need to be working in sport to do this. You can be like Matthew Hughes and just have an interest in sport. But Michael talks about the commercial side of sport regularly. And what that means for him is that he's building awareness for himself. So his balloon is incredibly high. And the way that he does that is by creating a series on a topic. So week 1, is all about Heineken. Week 2 is all about EA Sports. Week 3 about Spotify. And it allows him to do so in a really consistent and systematic way that allows him to, keep that balloon nice and high and consistently keep it high. So, and what that means is like, if he's having, coffees along the way, people aren't going to forget Michael. So here's an example of like a few of the posts that he's putting out. So, he's jumping onto Canva and creating these sort of graphics that, you don't need a ton of graphic design experience to kind of come up with what he's having or what he's putting together. He's putting together some posts as well about his job as well. So here he is, delighted to host some members for an exclusive pre-match pitch side tour for England versus Wales at Wembley. So he's posting bits and pieces about his job as well as just images from what's going on in the industry as well. And you guys are very welcome to do similar sort of stuff, particularly if you are interested or if you want to report on what's going on in sport in your space. Cool. So, and what that has meant for Michael is that he's created this helium balloon of his awareness that's kept him up in the air, that has helped him get hired time and time and time again. Because what that means is like when he walks into the FA and goes for his interview at Wembley, he's not just walking in as Michael Long. He's walking in as Michael Long, that guy they've seen on LinkedIn. They go, oh yeah, I think I know a bit about Michael. I've seen a bit of his stuff. That you've already created an impression, okay? And what I like to tell a lot of people too is in our program is if you've got an interview coming up, control the impression that you want to make either side of your interview because they're going to look at your LinkedIn profile. So you might as well control that. So 2 or 3 days beforehand, when they look at your LinkedIn profile, what's the most recent post that you want them to see? And then, after you've connected with them as well, what do you want to post a follow-up post about that just reminds them that you are one of the people that they interviewed if they are interviewing a whole stack of them? And so doing this really effectively turns your balloon into a helium balloon that gets you recognized time and time again. And then on top of that, it's just a much faster way to get yourself shortlisted. So this is kind of the series of posts that I posted back in 2020 to get myself headhunted. So Cricket Australia stood down 80% of staff for 10 weeks, and I could kind of sense that like redundancy might be on the horizon. So I didn't want to leave it to chance in case I had to job hunt. And so what I did was like over those series of weeks, I started to post a bit about who I was and what I could do and things I was interested in and whatnot. And what that meant is like I was basically product launching myself because eventually my job was made redundant and I had to put out this post that said, hey, sadly, last week my role was one of the redundancies announced at Cricket Australia and I'm now on the hunt for my next opportunity. Because I'd spent the time to build up a presence and share who I was and a bit about me, something like that got, 300 likes and 120 comments, okay? The other advantage from that as well was like, in very ironic fashion, a week after I lost my job, I started a podcast about how to get a job. And so in this post, I came out and said like, hey, the irony is not lost to me of losing my job and starting a podcast about getting a job. Nonetheless, here is the SportsGrad podcast. But what it meant was like, I was now giving this audience of people who had been following me for, 8 or 10 weeks, somewhere to go and something to do because I'd built up trust with them and they were like, okay, cool. Reuben's now got something for me to listen and watch. Let's check it out. As opposed to just coming out and being like, hey, here's a podcast, okay? And what that meant was that the podcast became the number one careers podcast on Apple 2 or 3 days later. But the real benefit from that was this. When the chief operating officer from this UK-based agency who was trying to expand to Australia reached out and said, hey, Reuben, we've seen a bit about you. We'd love to have a chat to see if you're a good fit. And then by the 1st of October, had a job that had doubled my salary. At that point in time, I'm the same person as I was at Cricket Australia, who was earning 60K a year, now getting offered 120K. The only difference was about 10 weeks of profile building that I'd done on LinkedIn. Okay. So can you see like how influential this sort of stuff is? Yep. Awesome. Cool. So guys, that is a bit about how to go from, overlooked to in demand. What do you want to do to summarize all that? If you can create a connection vehicle and do it in an effective way that builds your presence, it gives you people an excuse to connect with you. It keeps you top of mind. It makes it easy to follow up, and it allows people to just headhunt you directly. That's why we call it the headhunted system, because it's so effective at that. All right, guys, that is all for today. I hope you enjoyed that and got something out of it. If you want to learn directly from me and our other SportsGrad coaches who are working directly in the industry, then jump into the SportsGrad Method program. Once you're inside, you'll also get access to the entire SportsGrad Method curriculum that comes with a 90-day roadmap, so you know exactly what to do next. There is a step-by-step system to this. You do not have to think of what to do. We have thought of it all for you. Plus, you can tap into the SportsGrad network and get introductions to the people that might be hard to meet for you at the moment. Plus, you'll be surrounded by the wonderful SportsGrad community who are all helping each other get closer to their goals as well. So the results speak for themselves. Have a look at the website if you want to check it all out, but we'd love to see you inside and receive your application. See ya.